And we're using a timed.
I would get on.
Glad you made it. But thank you. If it was yours, I'd say, hey, that's pretty great. Thanks.
Shabbat Shalom. Good job. Do you like that one? That's pretty good. Okay, we had a little bit of mic issue, so it sounds like, is it a little too loud in here, or does it sound okay? Yeah? All right, we'll see. Shabbos, Brooklyn, Habadim, welcome. I don't know about you, but with this week, there's so much going on in our world, and I need a nice deep Shabbat breath. So please join me, if you also need one, a nice deep breath in and out. Let's allow ourselves even just a few moments of Shabbat peace, a little bit of respite from the noise of the world, and instead find time to reconnect with our souls, with that pintel yid that we often talk about, that little spark from God within us. And we're going to start tonight on page 142, welcoming in our Shabbat angels. I think it'll be nice to have them in the room with us tonight. Again, page 142. And by the way, if your Siddur has 2 page numbers in the corner, which can be a little confusing, please follow the one in the brackets. Page 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bochem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitzchem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And let's turn to page 643 to sing a song of praise to God. Hava Nashira. Hava, Hava Nashira. Shir Hallelujah. Shir Hallelujah. Hava, Hava Nashira. Shir Hallelujah. Shir Hallelujah. Hava Nashira. Shir Hallelujah. tonight, so I very much appreciate all of your voices helping me out tonight. So please sing out and enjoy. Let's turn now to the lighting and blessing of our Shabbat candles, back on page 120. Page 120. And it's an honor to invite up to the bima to help us light the candles Melinda Alcasser and Pat Smith and Rochelle Downheimer. Is she in the room? Oh, there you are. I knew I had seen you outside. You snuck in. Please, come on up. I'll hand you the holy big lighter. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner, Shel Shabbat. And thank you as well to Melinda and Pat for adding some wonderful rhythm to our service tonight. It's always a treat. Now let's turn together to Lecha Dodi and add to our feeling of celebration of Shabbat, page 138. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat lekavela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat lekavela. Shamor zachor v'divorata nishnianu el michad Adonai echad. Wish them a Shabbat Shalom. Introduce yourselves if you don't know somebody.
Christopher. So we should wait till the night for Shabbat. I think it's nice and cool. That's
And now, hopefully you had a chance to meet and greet the people near you.
I haven't seen
Learn some new names. We'll schmooze more at the Oneg later. It'll be wonderful, I promise. And let's turn together to page 144. We'll stay standing for the Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadal shemei rabad v'yalmad yirach yurtei v'emlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon u'chayech kol beit Yisrael b'gala u'bizman kariv v'yimeru amen Yahei shemei rabba mevorach le'olam me'amaya yitbarach yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramah v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalel shemei v'yishav rechu le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiram v'yalma v'yimeru amen Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed Let's join together in the English in the middle of page 149. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Malariv Aravim. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shokbeinu kumeinu, nasiya ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen. Let's read together on page 155 in the English, this creative alternative translation to the V'ahavta. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them at the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. On the top of page 157, we often read this English reading, and I worry sometimes that it becomes rote. I worry that about a lot of the prayers. It's probably just a rabbinic worry. That we don't pause often enough to really think about what we're saying, what we're praying each and every Shabbat. And there is something to be said for it becoming rote, because then it can become almost meditation-like, and your mind can be going to other places. But this reading on the top of 157, which is the alternative to the Emet reading, the Geulah reading on the right-hand page, leads us into Nichamocha. It's the reading that leads us into the reminder of our redemption from Egypt. And this one talks about the fact that wherever we are, it is eternally Egypt. And that we have to remember there is a better way in the Promised Land. So this moment in the service is a reminder that there are always moments of Mitzrayim, of narrow places from which we wish to be freed, whether it's personal, whether it's communal, whether it's global. And so this moment in our service is that reminder that there is a better place, there is a promised land. But how do we get there? What's the last line of the reading? By joining hands and marching together. So let's read this together before we sing Nichamocha. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot oseh velen, nora tehilot oseh velen, malchutecha ra'u banecha bokei hayam. God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Ve'shamru b'nei Israel Shabbat la'asot et ha'shabbat b'dorot ha'berit olam. Ve'shamru b'nei Israel Shabbat la'asot et ha'shabbat b'dorot ha'berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. Ve'shamru b'nei Ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Ve'shamru b'nei Israel Shabbat la'asot et ha'shabbat b'dorot ha'berit olam. Vayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Ve'shamru b'nei Shabbat la'asot et ha'shabbat b'dorot ha'berit olam. Page 164, for the start of the tefillah, this central prayer of our service. All who are able are invited to please rise. Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chazdei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevii Geula livnei b'neihem, Leman Shemo Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh u'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim kol yom ya'alu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We continue silently through page 180. You may be seated when you have finished your prayers. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos again. Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for choosing to spend your Friday night in our nicely air-conditioned, not as humid sanctuary, but also to help us welcome Shabbat. My dad always says that Shabbat comes at just the right time. Shabbat came at just the right time. And so let's allow ourselves to relax into Shabbat even just a little bit more. To allow ourselves the space to let go just a little bit. There's plenty of work to be done always. Our lists are long. But we need just a moment to rejuvenate, to breathe, to refresh. And let's take that feeling, that rejuvenation, that prayer of healing of ourselves, and let's send it out to our family members, our community members, those in our world who are ill, who are in pain, who are suffering, who are struggling tonight. Let's send them our prayers for a refuah shlema. Shlema, of course, is related to the word shalom, to peacefulness, and also to wholeness. And so we pray for, if not a complete recovery, then a recovery that's filled with peacefulness. Please join me in sending our get well wishes to Reagan Konecki, John D. Nicola, Nancy Schwam, Miriam Swidler, Larry Mancini, Charles Savitt, Burl Bellows, Carrie Bellows, Cindy Rashall, Arthur Myers, Iris Clark, Stacy Reed, Debbie Clymer, Nan Kraszewski, Daphne Rosenberg, Heather Waters, Joyce Giuseppe, Savannah Johnson, Ronnie Burson Weiner, Lenore Lesser, Jimmy Imbrogno, Donald Hoffman, Denise Davies, Marilyn Mazer, Howard Schwedel, and Norm Ruddy. Who else are you thinking of tonight and you're sending your prayers to?
Okay.
Leslie Casson.
Sherry.
Robert Merton. Lynn Frederickson.
Yishaberach Avotinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Ve'imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Rachel, Hu Yivarech, Ve'yirapeh, T'kol HaCholim Ha'ela. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, bless and heal all who are ill, all who are suffering, all who are in pain. We pray that they soon experience a healing of mind and of body and of spirit, and that they return to us with a renewed sense of wholeness and wellness. Baruch atah Adonai rofeh hacholim. We praise you, God, who cares for the sick. And let us say together, Amen. Let's turn to page 371 and sing Debbie Friedman's Mishnah together. And we are fortunate to have people in our lives who have healed, who have recovered from an operation, from an illness, from injury, from, I did not stand it over, from anything that made them feel less than whole. And so on behalf of those who experienced those gifts of healing, those who escaped danger in any way, those who traveled far away and came back home safely, we praise you, God, who makes good things happen in the world around us. And let us all say together, Amen. And we have smachot in our lives, simchas, happy occasions to celebrate together as well. So who has a significant birthday, anniversary, something really exciting going on in your life that you would like to share with us? Yes, please.
I am from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm here with my aunt who this is her first time here.
Well, it's so exciting to have you both here. Thank you for choosing on your short trip to town to come and be with us. And thanks for coming by. Thank you. No? Otherwise, a quiet night? Arthur, please.
Marsha and moving to where?
We are all so happy for that too, that you guys are back under the same roof. Almost on top of one another. I was hoping you could send messages in Morse code. But we're so happy for you too. And, oh yes, Marsha, please.
Let's see, Arthur has just had published in the New York City Jewish Genealogical Society newsletter on their front page an essay he wrote about his father's journey. And his father was an immigrant and wrote us during the 1970s about 10 letters, and they were wonderful, and Arthur wrote an essay about it, and it was published.
How exciting. Mazel tov. We definitely all want to see that. Thank you for sharing that joy and that honor with us. You can tell she's proud of you, Arthur. I'm happy to announce that I have a new nephew. Thank you. My brother Adam, the one who's a rabbi. There's a lot of bellows, it's hard to keep track of us. But Adam, the one who's a rabbi in St. Louis, his wife just gave birth on late Sunday night of last week to little baby Jonah Bellows. And so we're so excited. And Jonah has a big sister and a big brother, and they are already just adoring having a little baby around. So it's wonderful to have more little ones in our family. Anyone else? Well, thank you for sharing these moments with us as well and helping us to celebrate with your simchas too. So many of you picked up a chumash on your way in. If you didn't, go ahead and take a second to do it. We're going to do a little Torah study together today. That's the maroon Etz Chaim book outside. Don't worry, we'll talk amongst ourselves. Oh, thanks, Dad. So as I was preparing my thoughts for tonight, for a Devar Torah / sermon I wanted to give, I realized I wanted to hear from all of you your thoughts on this topic as well. And so I'm going to share with you two texts tonight that I'd like to compare and contrast. One of them will be more familiar to you than the other, and one of them is in this week's Torah portion, and thus may not be as familiar to you. So I'd like to look at the familiar one first, and that you can find on page 317. Which is the start of the book of Exodus. As you'll recall, just a quick reminder, there are 5 books in the Torah, right? Of course, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, okay? Genesis is all of the family drama, the mishigas between the generations, all the sibling rivalry, right? And then it ends with Joseph and the whole family moving to Egypt. Jacob, all of Jacob's children and grandchildren, and because Joseph was kind of vice pharaoh, he was the grand vizier, so to speak, to Pharaoh, he was very well respected, and the Israelites were very welcome in Egypt. Okay, so then we get to the book of Exodus. Okay, so can somebody start reading where chapter 1 begins out loud for us? Would you like to, please?
These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each coming with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The total number of persons that were of Jacob's issue came to 70, Joseph being already in Egypt. Joseph died, and all of his brothers and all their generation. But the Israelites were fertile and prolific. They multiplied and increased very greatly, so that the land was filled with them. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are much too numerous for us. Let us deal shrewdly with them, so that they may not increase. Otherwise, in the event of war, they may join our enemies in fighting against us and rise from the ground." So they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built garrison cities for Pharaoh, Pithom, and Ramses. But the more they were oppressed, the more they increased and spread out, so that the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites.
Thank you so much. So this is, of course, the beginning of the story that leads to Passover, right? So who, just off the top of your head, what are some of the highlights of the rest of the story? What winds up happening?
Moses is born,
Moses is born.
and they have to hide him, and one of Pharaoh's daughters puts him in a basket.
Excellent. Yes, raises him in the palace, right? Essentially as Pharaoh's grandchild. And then, and after this, by the way, this happens with Moses 400 years, according to one of the countings in the Torah, after we became slaves in Egypt. So we were slaves for 400 years. Okay, so the stuff with Moses happens, he grows up, and then what happens? You didn't know you were going to be tested on Haggadah tonight.
He finds God, so to speak.
Do you want to introduce who you are, by the way, to everybody? Because I think everyone will love knowing.
Joel Bernstein,
And your father was
Rabbi.
Rabbi Bernstein, one of my predecessors here, who was at Rodevate Tzedek for a number of years. So thank you so much, and it's an honor to have you here tonight. And you learned well as a child of a rabbi, and it makes me feel better about my toddler that maybe all will go well and you won't need therapy and support groups. Probably will, but we all do. So, of course, then we get to God calling out to Moses from the burning bush, fast forwarding a little bit, saying, "You have to go back to Egypt and tell Pharaoh, let my people go so that they can worship me," right? So Moses does that. He goes to essentially lose a family member, says, "Let my people go." What happens? Pharaoh's not like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." What does Pharaoh do? He says, "No," and then what? Yeah, we get 10 plagues, right? Finally, after the 10th, which is horrific, the death of the firstborn of all the Egyptians, we're finally freed. We cross through the sea on dry land, which is a miracle, and we begin our wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, okay? So now, let's turn to this week's Torah portion, because I want you to compare and contrast. So please jump forward to page 894. So this week we are in Parashat Balak, which is famous for a few different things. The Exodus story is famous because in the Song of the Sea we get our Micha Mocha song in our service. This portion gives us another common liturgical song, which is Matovu. Matovu Omelecha Yaakov Mishkanotecha Israel. How beautiful, how wondrous are your tents, O Jacob, your encampments, O Israel. And that comes from this week's Torah portion too. So I want to read from the beginning of Balak. So who would like to read for us this one? Thank you. Go at least through 6.
Balak, son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. That was last week.
That was last week's episode.
Moab was alarmed because that people was so numerous. Moab dreaded the Israelites, and Moab said to the elders of Midian, "Now this horde will lick clean all that is about us, as an ox licks up the grass of the field." Balak, son of Zippor, who was king of Moab at that time, sent messengers to Balaam, son of Beor, in Petor, which is by the Euphrates, in the land of his kinfolk, to invite him, saying, "There is a people that came out of Egypt. It hides the earth from view and is settled next to me. Come then, put a curse upon this people for me, since they are too numerous for me. Perhaps I can thus defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom you bless is blessed indeed, and he whom you curse is cursed."
Okay. So this king is threatened by what? The number of Israelites, right? And that is exactly what was happening in the other portion. So let's talk about this. First of all, what are some differences you know, based on what you know about the Passover story? And does anybody know what happens with Balaam? You want to sum it up for us? David, I know you do. So Balaam, interestingly enough, just to tell you quickly, he's a prophet, meaning he's able to talk to gods. He's not an Israelite, but he happens to, for whatever reason, have access to talk to our God as well. And Balaam, after getting this order from King Balak to go and curse the Israelites, and that must mean that words are powerful, Balaam consults with God and says, "So what do you want me to do in this situation?" And God says, "I'm going to let you know what to do. Go ahead and just kind of follow along." And Balaam keeps putting it off because he wants to wait for God's direction. And Balak keeps sending messengers and bribes towards Balaam, wanting him to go and curse the Israelites. And finally, God gives Balaam permission to go, but says, "I'm going to tell you what to actually say." When Balaam gets to a mountain overlooking the encampment of the Israelites, instead of cursing them the way Balak had ordered, out of his mouth only comes blessings. And so the Israelites are blessed. And like I said, his words seem to have power. A curse would have had power, and the blessing does as well. So what are the similarities between these two stories that you see, and what are some of the differences? The power of numbers? Can you say more about that?
Well, the ego of the people in charge were unable to cope with the fear that they might be overrun.
Yeah.
And so they were more willing to hurt those who were not doing anything wrong, just to protect them.
Yeah. So in case you didn't hear Pat, he spoke about the ego of the person in charge and power, and his, I can use his in both these cases, his desperate desire to hang on to that power when feeling threatened by this mass group of people who are doing nothing wrong, you pointed out, but present a risk of some kind, to him at least, and is willing to do things to them that are negative. Okay with that. What else do we see in these stories?
Yeah, in both stories, there's humility, because no matter what the people did, God was always in charge, and it was His way.
So that's a really interesting point too, and that leads me to one of the questions I wanted to make sure to ask tonight, so thank you. Which is, God is watching over both these stories and participating in different ways. An interesting difference though is and the rabbis for thousands of years have wondered, why did the slavery have to go on for 400 years before God's role in it took place? You know, in the Balaam story, it happens immediately. The curse is, ordered. God intervenes. Why did we have to be slaves for 400 years before God intervened? I don't know. Any thoughts on that? Anything come to mind? Because I don't
think the time mattered.
You don't think the time mattered? Meaning
I mean, we
to the
perceive
story
time.
or to us?
Well, we perceive time because we live, linear life. But when it comes to the development of these larger things, I don't think the time mattered.
That's probably right. That the chronology is not as important as what's taking place. What's the narrative
Definitely.
arc?
Well,
Thank you. You said. Yeah, right.
What's the significance of 400? Is it happening?
Yes. In that, there are numbers that we find all the time repeating themselves in our stories. 4, 10, 40. And there's 10, 12 is another one we have. And they're numbers that are reflected in nature and are very common in texts of this era, and Mesopotamian texts as well. And so you'll get multiples of them in many ways. So like Moses lives to be 120. And so that's 12 times 10. You get a 3, you get a 4 in there as well. Why is 4 a number? Probably because of the 4 seasons. Why is 10 fingers, 12 months, right? We observe all those things. So 40 and 400 are meant to mean a long time. And 400 is an even longer time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else do you notice about the stories? Yeah, Shel.
Both Moses and Balaam, their roles as messengers.
Okay, so Moses and Balaam and their roles as messengers, yeah.
But Moses is reluctant, at first especially. Balaam seems to trust that he hears God and seems to have more confidence in his role.
That's such an interesting point. So, just repeating what Shelley said, Moses is a reluctant prophet all along. He's really not confident in his role. He asks God many times, "Are you sure you want me to be the one doing this?" And fights back against that. And there are times that Balaam, as you just said, seems pretty confident in his role. It seems to be, this is his work. This is what he does. He talks to God/gods, and is comfortable having these kinds of conversations. So he just goes about his work. Like, okay, I'll go handle this. Really interesting point.
Yeah, and in fact, Moses didn't find God until the burning bush.
That's true. We might read the story and see God's role in it, right? But yeah, Moses doesn't encounter God until there's that bush that's burning but not being consumed. Right? Yeah, David.
An observation and a question.
Okay.
So the observation is that Pharaoh wants to suppress an internal population,
Uh-huh.
and Balak wants to repel a maiden population.
Uh-huh.
My question is that Balak is the son of Zipporah. Is that the masculine form of Zipporah?
I believe so. I believe it's the same group.
Is there a significance in that?
Ben Seymour. Yeah, it's the same group. Let's see, does the text address that at all? I don't know. We have to look that up. Everybody remember who Zipporah is? Moses' wife. Right? So that's really interesting. I wonder if that's even just a little kind of hint of let's look at these stories together. But I don't know. I don't know if there's more to it than that. Interesting point. Was that what you were going to say?
No, I'm just trying to figure out, they both mean birds.
A bird. Feminine versus masculine, a bird.
So I wonder if he's, you know, in a pagan world, I wonder if there's some sense that he's, you know, like the Falcon King or something like that. You know, that might have been obvious at the time, but isn't necessarily when we read it.
That's so interesting. I like that image. There's something there to play with. Yeah, please.
So what struck me was that in Moses' situation, God was really doing it, if I remember correctly. Whereas in the Balaam story, Balaam actually makes that decision, so it's his own free will, right? And it's not, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is God was really directing Moses, and God caused the plagues, right?
Right.
And here, it's really up to Balaam. So
It's
it's
so
an
interesting. So
evolution-
who's the instigator?
an evolution that man has more control. Man, you know, what man does makes a difference, and you can't. It's not all up to God. You've got to do something yourself.
Interesting. So what role do we play in the events that take place in our lives? And you're right, so much of the Moses story seems to be teaching us that you have to just wait till God is going to take care of us. So it is interesting to think Balaam, a non-Israelite, you're right, takes the initiative in a number of ways in his conversations with God and in what winds up happening. Fascinating point, and I do wonder what the takeaway is from that. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
So one thing I feel like both stories have is that there's a great deal of what we would call like the origins of what anti-Semitism is. Is that people are fearful of issues. They're fearful of the ways of them. So I mean, it's like so they're very different than everyone else, and everyone's scared of things that are different and unknown. And the most important thing about this is that anyone who has ever tried to destroy the Jewish people has ended up becoming the person, the group that is destroyed. And whoever has blessed them are the ones who receive blessings.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting. And what's particularly interesting about that is Balak is the king of Moab, right? Who's a Moabite who becomes really important later on? Anybody remember? Ruth, who's the ancestor of King David and thus the ancestor of the ultimate Messiah, whoever the Messiah will be, right? And so that's interesting. I wonder if this chain of events, somehow gives us a hint of Ruth's, the redemption of Ruth. Interesting. Okay, so that's where you wanted to go with my sermon. That was going to be a big chunk of it, and you helped me give it tonight. So thank you. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm going to come back to you in just a second. Rochelle, what do you want to add?
I'm not adding, I'm going to ask a question.
Please.
Is Balaam increased within the Israelites, or does he just come in and leave? He just doesn't know what's over there?
He comes in and blesses them, which seemingly gives them good luck. Blessing on their journey as they continue towards the land of Israel.
But he doesn't stay with them.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't convert. He doesn't join in. He fades away. But plays this really interesting role of someone who is seemingly set to harm us in some way, if not physically, then metaphysically, and can't. Any other?
I was just going to,
Yeah.
It's interesting that we have two different versions of how to deal with the other in our presence. One is that we have pharaohs who think that the idea is to suppress and exploit. And we have Balaam who thinks the idea is to liberate them. So two different efforts, for lack of a better term, genocide.
And neither very nice.
Exactly. Both fail.
Both fail. So one of the points I wanted to make sure to make tonight related to these two texts is that the Torah is 3,500 years old, according to biblical scholarship. This is human nature. As horrible as that is, fear of the other, it's often us. But fear of the other seems to just be part of human nature. That doesn't mean we give into it, that doesn't mean we put up with it. But it's part of our story over and over again. And even beyond the stories of the Torah, we know how many times we've been that other. And we've been blamed, we've been the scapegoat as Jews. But it's not always us. And there are plenty of other communities who serve as that scapegoat, who are currently serving as that scapegoat. And so, I wonder if we were to write the story today and not just give these two options, what would we write? Would we write a story of hope? Would we write a story about what do we do when there's a new group of people moving into our area that are different from us by color, by faith, by any type of belief system, any sexual orientation, any type of lifestyle? What do we do? How do we react when so much of our human, the way we're built, seems to be to reject, to obliterate, to oppress? What do we do? You don't have to give an answer right now, but I pose the question because I think it's very real. This is what we're surrounded by right now. What I do ask of you, with these two stories in mind, perhaps as cautionary tales, is there something you can even do in this coming week that can counteract this force that seems to be within so many, too many of us to fear the other? What can you do? And it could be related to us being the other, it could be related to somebody else being the other. But what's an action you can take this week? And if anyone takes me up on that and wants to report back, I would love to hear from you. Because I think by joining hands and marching together, we're going to reach that promised land. And I do believe that. So Yasher Koach, everyone, thank you for helping me give my Devar Torah and sermon tonight. You did it for me. Yeah. Arthur, please.
It's a little bit out of context, but page 895,
Yeah.
footnote 13, follow-up says to the ballot's dignitaries, go back to your own country.
Which according to the EEOC is grounds for firing. But yeah. Yes, that is so interesting that it says that. So one other part of this parsha that's so fun, and that we're going to be talking about tomorrow morning in Holy Scrollers, our Torah study group, at 9 a.m., is the talking donkey incident. So if you want to come back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and let's talk about the fact that there's a talking donkey who's wiser than the human beings in this story, and she's female, come back and talk. And David sent me an incredibly fun interpretation of it earlier today. But yeah, what do you want to say about that?
I was going to say that in a way, Torah as an entire document, particularly this parsha, makes at least a first attempt at what you're talking about. So Balak, who is the king of Moab. So Moab is the territory that's on the Jordanian side of the Jordan River, kind of opposite Dead Sea, opposite Jericho. And in this story, he's really a clown.
Yeah.
I mean, he's running around, curse them, and all that comes out is a blessing. And he's thwarted it at each attempt until finally he just vanishes with the script. What we're instructed, and partly in this book and frequently in Deuteronomy, is when you enter the land and occupy it, the stranger who lives among you, as different from the ones who don't live among you, the Canaanites to the north. The stranger who lives among you is to be your brother. And I have no idea how this actually worked in practice all those centuries ago, but it seems to me that the contrast is really important. That somebody wanted to make an effort at what you're trying to get us to see.
get us to that place of saying the stranger in your midst is not a threat.
Yeah.
They're part of you. Because you were strangers. So you've been through this thing together. Thank you. Yasher koach. Well, thank you all for studying this text with me. And I do invite you back tomorrow morning to talk about the talking donkey. I wish Eddie Murphy could be with us tomorrow. He'd answer my phone calls. So a few announcements. I will be away at camp for the next 2 weeks. As of Monday, you may be aware that every summer I go and serve as faculty at one of the URJ, the Union for Reform Judaism camps. I've been at Crane Lake up in the Berkshires for about 9 years. And for the first time, I'm going to one of their brand new camps, their Creative Arts Academy, which is all creative arts. And I get to do theater for 2 weeks. And I'm very, very excited. And it's all through a Jewish lens. And apparently there's a full musical production number based on the Parsha every Shabbat that they write in a week. And there was I'll tell you one other thing, there was a clip on Facebook of the director of the camp. Picture her up on a step stool, okay, holding a broom, because they're about to do cleanup after a meal. And the entire lunchroom is singing Defying Gravity from Wicked in harmony, and it's beautiful. And so the captain was like, what other camp would the director do that? If you don't know that number from Wicked, it's the Wicked Witch declaring that she's gonna, defy gravity, she's gonna fly. So it's just, that's the kind of stuff that happens at lunchtime at the camp I'm going to. So I will be away the next 2 weeks. If there are emergencies, of course, please do let me know. But Belinda will be back, Wendy will be back from vacation. So congregation life continues. Next Friday night services are at 7:30 p.m. As always, Friday night the 2nd, they're at 7:30. And that's a First Friday service, so we use our family Siddur, and all ages are always welcome, but especially on First Friday. And then the following Friday night, the 9th, is our Shabbat barbecue. And we hope you'll all come back and join us. 6 o'clock is when we're starting that night on the 9th. We'll go outside in the courtyard, weather permitting, and do a nice short service together, enjoying the weather and the air. And then we'll go out to our lawn at that side of the building and enjoy a barbecue all together. It is a meat meal. We do ask you to bring a non-dairy side dish to share. We are looking for holy grillers. So if you are good with a barbecue, please consider coming and helping us. We really need some folks to make our delicious food. We will have kosher hot dogs available. We'll have burgers. There will be vegetarian options. And so please do come and join us for our Shabbat barbecue on the 9th. And finally, thank you to Rochelle and to Melinda and Pat for sponsoring tonight's Oneg. Rochelle sponsored in memory of her parents, David and Dora Adler, and Melinda and Pat, thank you in memory of Melinda's mother, Lois Althusser. So thank you so much. And our Oneg, what?
Just went ahead.
Please.
My deceased brother's birthday just passed, so it's in his honor.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for adding that. What was his name?
Larry.
Larry. Thank you. And we do hope you'll join us for our Oneg right in the social hall following services. Any other announcements? Anything I missed? Okay. So let's turn to our concluding prayers. Aleinu, page 586, in the middle of the page. Please rise. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tetu la'le'otzer b'reshit, shelo asan tivayei ha'aratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkeinu kahem, ve'kol rabeinu k'chol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, u'mishpachim u'modim, lifnei melech, malachei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shehu notei shamayim ve'oseh The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns, it glows, it is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance, and our life burns down in gutters. There's an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen, yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. Page 598. In a moment, if you hear the name of a family member or friend read aloud on our Shiva, Shloshim, or Yortzeit list, and if you're comfortable doing so, you may rise when you hear his or her name read aloud. This allows us to offer you comfort and to recognize your loss. Then we will all rise to join you for the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. This Shabbat, we're marking the recent passing of our dear friend David Frank. We mark the Yortzeits, the anniversaries of death for David Irving Adler, Dora Tommen Adler, Lois Jane Harmon Alhasser, Lena Altman, Lena Oster, Karen Joy Bernfond, David Davis, Fanny Diamond, Lena Dorenbaum, Michael Elkin, Ron Gister, Robert Goldberg, Louis Gottfried, Alfred Cram, Abraham Michael, Barney Malafsky, Clarice Topps Miller, Morris Pear, Harry Rosen, Mildred Rosen, Alice Saltzman, Ruth Seidman, Linda Sherman, Samuel Sober, Alice Wolf, and Rabbi Bernstein. Zichronam Livracha. Who else is marking a Shiva, Shloshim, or Yortzeit and would like to share a name out loud?
Michael.
May all of their memories always be a blessing to those who knew and loved them. Together now we all rise and we join in the words of Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shmei Rabbah, Ve'alma Dirach Yirtei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayet Chon, V'yom Echon, V'chayet Kol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala U'Vizman Kariv, V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah, V'varach Le'olam L'Amei Almaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitba'ar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei Kudisha, B'richu, Le'elam Yimkol Birchata V'shirata, Tushbechata V'nechemata, Da'miran V'yalma, V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shalom Rabbah Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'romav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'romav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, to close our service with the words from Isaiah, nation shall not take up sword against nation, and they shall never again study war. Lo yisab goy el goy cherem, lo yamadu lo milchama. Lo yisab goy el goy cherem, lo yamadu lo milchama. Lo yisab goy el goy cherem, lo yamadu lo milchama. Lo yisab goy el goy cherem, lo yamadu lo milchama.
Got up early in the morning, because they did the live stream to the time
So you gotta send
of the launch, so he woke up so he could watch it, right? Live stream it. Tell him
Treat over. Okay.
It's nice having you. Did we interview you for the 100th anniversary?
Yes.
I thought so, yeah.